The crash in the forest. The night was quiet. Cold wind moved through the trees, and only the sound of leaves brushing together filled the forest. Jack Carver stood outside his wooden cabin, holding a hot mug of coffee. He was alone, like every night for the past 5 years. He used to be a soldier, but that was long ago, before the war ended, before he lost his wife, and before he stopped caring about the world. Now he lived here, far from cities, far from noise, fixing broken machines that no one else wanted. Then, the silence broke. A bright flash shot across the sky. A loud boom followed, shaking the ground under Jack's feet. Birds screamed and flew. From the trees, a red glow lit up the forest not far from where Jack stood. What the hell was that? Jack muttered. He grabbed his flashlight, picked up his old jacket, and rushed into the woods. As he moved through the dark forest, he could smell something. Burning metal. The trees thinned out near a small open field. That's where he saw it. Ship, but not human. It was small and silver, like a smooth stone half buried in the ground. The crash had torn the earth, leaving a trail of smoke and fire. Parts of the ship were glowing. A strange blue fluid leaked from cracks in the surface. Jack's heart pounded. He had seen alien tech during the war, but never this close. He stepped carefully. Then he heard a noise, a soft cry. He raised his flashlight and moved to the side of the ship. A part of the metal had opened like a door. Inside, he saw her. A woman. Not human. She was lying on the floor of the ship. Her skin was light green, almost glowing in the dark. Her long silver hair was stuck to her face, wet with sweat. Her arm was twisted in the wrong direction, clearly broken. Her eyes were half open, but they locked onto Jack the moment she saw him. She gasped and tried to crawl away. Jack stepped back and raised his hands. "Hey, easy, I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but she understood his tone. Her breathing slowed, but her eyes stayed wide with fear. Jack looked at her arm. It was bad. She needed help, and fast. He had no idea what kind of alien she was, or what she might do, but one thing was clear. She was hurt. And alone. Jack sighed. "Damn it, Jack! What are you doing?" he said to himself. Carefully, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a soft cloth. He tore it into strips and slowly moved closer. She flinched, but she didn't fight. "I'm going to wrap your arm. Just hold still," he said gently. She groaned in pain, but didn't resist. Jack worked quickly. His hands moved with the calm of an old medic. Once the arm was wrapped and supported, he reached down and carefully lifted her into his arms. She was light. Too light. He could feel her shaking. He took one last look at the crashed ship. It was burning slowly, not safe to stay near. If someone saw it, they'd call the government, or worse, the military. Jack didn't trust either of them. He carried her back to his cabin. Inside, he laid her on the bed and covered her with a blanket. He checked her wound again. It wasn't bleeding anymore, but it looked serious. Her body temperature was low. Jack sat beside her and stared for a moment. "What are you?" he whispered. She looked at him with half-closed eyes. Then she said something in her language, soft, musical, but full of pain. He didn't understand a word, but he saw the tears in her eyes. She was scared. Jack stood up and walked to his kitchen. He poured some warm water and returned. He held the cup near her lips. At first she refused. Then slowly, she drank. That's when Jack noticed something else. Her body was bruised, not just from the crash. She had older marks, thin cuts, and lines across her back and arms like whips. She hadn't just crashed, she had escaped. Jack sat down and looked at the woman again. She had come from somewhere far beyond Earth, carrying pain he couldn't understand. But right now, in this small cabin deep in the woods, she needed one thing: someone to care. And maybe, for the first time in years, so did he. Her name was Sierra. The fire in the cabin's fireplace cracked quietly as cold wind tapped against the windows. Jack sat at the edge of the bed, watching the alien woman sleep. Her arm was wrapped and resting on a pillow. She still looked weak, but the fear in her eyes had started to fade. He hadn't slept all night. Something about her, something deep, had stirred memories he buried long ago. Around dawn, she opened her eyes. She looked around, blinking slowly, confused and alert. Then she saw Jack. He raised his hand in peace. "You're safe here." She stared at him. Then her lips moved. "Sira." Jack blinked. "What?" She pointed to herself. "Sira." It was the first word she said that he understood. "A name," Jack smiled gently. "Sira. Okay, I'm Jack." He pointed to himself. "Jack," she repeated softly. "Jack. Close enough." He brought a bowl of warm broth to her lips and helped her drink. She looked at it suspiciously but took a few sips, then more. She was starving. She hadn't eaten in days. As she finished, she said something in her language. It was soft, almost a whisper, full of strange syllables. "I wish I knew what you were saying," Jack said with a small smile. She looked at him as if searching his face for meaning. Then she reached toward the side of her head and tapped behind her ear. Jack leaned closer. There was a small, burnt metallic implant, half melted. It must have been a translator chip. "Wait, this was supposed to help you speak?" Jack asked. She nodded slowly. Jack reached into his toolbox. He didn't know alien tech, but he knew machines. He took out a tiny scanner and examined the implant. The system was broken, but maybe not dead. For the next hour, Jack worked carefully. Sira watched, with tired, curious eyes. Finally, he connected a low-power wire to the chip. A green light blinked, then she flinched. Jack pulled back. "You okay?" Her body shook slightly. Then, she spoke. "I hear your voice." Jack's eyes widened. "You can understand me?" She struggled to sit up. Her voice was slow, robotic, but improving. "Yes." Translation? Unstable. But working. Jack helped her sit against the wall. "That's amazing." She looked around the room. "This place, not prison." Jack frowned. "No, you're free. You crashed. I found you." She paused, then whispered, "No crash. I jumped." "Jumped?" Jack asked. She looked down at her hands. "I escaped." Now Jack sat straight. "Escaped from what?" Sira touched the bruises on her arm and whispered, "They used us. Experiments. Pain." Jack clenched his fists. "Who?" She shook her head. "Not all humans are like you, but some work with my enemies. They sell us." Jack felt cold, inside. He had heard rumors during the war about certain black market labs that used alien prisoners for bio-research. He never wanted to believe it. Now he saw the truth in her scars. "You're safe here," he said firmly. "I won't let anyone take you." Sira looked into his eyes for a long time. Then, in a quiet voice, she asked, "Why?" Jack didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Because once I needed help too, and no one came." Sira slowly leaned back, her eyes softening. Then, "We are same." He nodded. Later that evening, Jack heard a strange beeping from one of his machines. A signal. He rushed to check. The signal came from his old scanner, picking up low-frequency waves, a tracking pulse. Jack cursed under his breath. "They're looking for her." He shut down the scanner quickly and checked his surroundings. The crash had clearly been noticed. Someone was nearby, possibly watching. He walked back inside and saw Sira still resting, her breathing calmer. He whispered, to himself, "We don't have much time." The heart remembers. The rain started softly that night. Light drops tapped on the roof of the cabin as Jack sat at his workbench, pretending to fix a broken radio. But his mind wasn't on the wires. It was on Sira. She was sleeping again, her body still weak. but her breathing calmer now. Her broken arm was healing faster than expected, too fast even for humans. Jack wondered what kind of biology she had, but it wasn't her body he thought about. It was her eyes. Eyes that looked ancient. Eyes that had seen pain. Hours later, Jack woke to the sound of quiet footsteps. Not outside, inside. He reached for his tool hammer but stopped when he saw her. Sierra was standing in the hallway barefoot, in one of his old shirts. Her silver hair was messy, her green skin still bruised, but she stood tall and calm like a silent flame. "You should be resting," Jack said. Sierra's voice was clearer now, though still mechanical. "I had a dream." Jack nodded. "Nightmare?" She looked down. "I remembered my sister." Jack leaned back in the chair. "You have a sister?" "Had," she corrected. Silence. Then she walked over and sat on the floor near the fire, wrapping herself in a blanket. Jack joined her, sitting across from her. She was younger, curious. She used to ask many things. About humans. About the stars. One day she was taken. Jack's jaw tightened. "Taken by who?" Sierra's voice turned cold. "By those who trade life for power." Jack didn't ask more. He didn't need to. "I tried to stop them. They broke my arm, then sent me to the science vessel. They said they would study me, heal me. But it was not healing. It was pain." Jack looked at the scars on her wrist. Thin, precise, surgical. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Sierra looked up. "You didn't hurt me." "No," Jack said, "but people like me did. Humans. Not all humans," she said. "You are different. Kind." Jack let out a small, bitter laugh. "I wasn't always." Sierra tilted her head. "What broke you?" Jack stared into the fire for a long moment. "My wife. Her name was Elira. She was a nurse during the war. She always said life was worth saving, even alien life." Sierra listened closely. "She died in a transport bombing, wrong place, wrong time. After that, I quit. I came here. Stopped talking to people. Stopped feeling anything." He looked at her. "Until you." Sierra didn't smile. She just placed her hand gently over her bandaged arm. "You healed me. Maybe I can heal you too." For the first time in years, Jack felt something break inside his chest, not in a painful way, but in a freeing way. Like a wall falling. That night, they didn't speak much more. They sat near the fire until she fell asleep again, this time with her head resting gently on his shoulder. Jack didn't move, not even when he heard something that made his heart stop. A mechanical hum. Outside, in the trees. Jack carefully lifted Sierra and laid her back in bed. Then he turned off all lights and grabbed his old scope. Through the window he scanned the forest, and there it was. A black drone, silently floating between the trees. It wasn't military. It was private. Sleek. Watching. Jack's mind raced. Someone knew she was here. He quickly wrote something on a small notepad and left it beside Sierra's bed. "Don't open the door. Stay silent. I'll return soon." Then he slipped outside through the back, his coat covering his weapon. If someone was hunting her, they were about to find out. Jack Carver wasn't the man to cross. "They want her back." Jack moved like a shadow through the trees. The night was quiet, but too quiet. He crouched near a ridge and peered through the scope again. The drone was hovering silently, scanning the area with red beams that moved in a slow, careful pattern. Then it floated away, deeper into the forest. Jack's breath fogged in the cold air. "They're close," he whispered. He crept toward the edge of the old comm tower ruins nearby. It hadn't worked in years, but it was the only high point for miles, and the perfect place to plant surveillance. He was right. There, hidden in the shadows, stood a small stealth shuttle. Matte black, No lights, no markings. The kind used by mercenaries, not governments. Jack's face hardened. He knew these types, not soldiers, hunters. They didn't follow laws. They followed paychecks. Back at the cabin, Sierra woke suddenly. Her body still ached, but her instincts screamed. Something was wrong. She saw the note Jack left. "Don't open the door. Stay silent. I'll return soon." She gripped the edge of the blanket, heart racing. Her species had senses humans didn't. Deep biological alarms that rang when predators were near. She could feel them coming, and they were not human. Jack returned just before dawn. He moved quickly, locking the doors, boarding the windows, covering any light leaks. Sierra was waiting, calm but alert. "They're here," she said. Jack nodded. "I saw their ship, not military. Worse, private hunters." Sierra closed her eyes. "They belong to the Red Market." Jack sat across from her. "What do they want from you, Sierra?" She hesitated, then stood slowly. She walked to the table and pulled back the sleeve of her bandaged arm. Beneath the skin, faint blue lines pulsed. "I was born with a rare genetic structure. My cells can repair damage, fast. My people called it the gift. But the Black Labs, they call it something else." Jack's stomach twisted. "A product." She nodded. "They take us, harvest us, test us. We are not seen as people, only as samples." Jack stood and slammed his hand on the table. "That's not happening, not again." Sierra flinched slightly but met his eyes. "You can't stop them, not alone." Jack stared into the fire. "Then we won't be alone." He opened a box from under the floorboards. Inside, old gear, a rusted blaster rifle, smoke bombs, a tiny EMP charge, tools from a life he had buried. "You were a soldier?" Sierra asked. Jack didn't answer. He just loaded the rifle and said, "We leave tonight." They packed fast. Jack had an old terrain bike, loud but fast enough. He mapped out a path through the southern ridge where the rocks would jam drone signals. There was a cave network 2 miles out. If they could reach it before sunrise, they had a chance. But before they left, Sierra did something strange. She stepped outside and touched the earth, closed her eyes. Jack watched quietly. "What are you doing?" he asked. She whispered, "Saying goodbye. In my world, we speak to the land before we run from it." Jack looked down at her, this fragile, glowing being, and realized something. She wasn't just escaping hunters. She was leaving behind a part of herself. As they rode through the trees, the sun began to rise behind them. Suddenly, boom, a pulse hit the ground near the bike. The bike swerved as Jack shouted, "Hold on!" Behind them, 3 black figures emerged from the trees, suits glowing red at the joints. One of them raised a scanner. "There! Target locked!" a voice hissed. Jack turned sharply. The bike jumped over a hill and down a rocky path. Sierra held tight, her face calm but her eyes burning with fear. More shots came. One grazed the tire. Jack barely kept control. "They won't stop," Sierra said. "Neither will I," Jack growled. They reached the cave entrance just as the bike died. Jack dragged Sierra into the shadows as the hunters spread out behind them. He turned to her and placed something in her hand, a small device. "If I don't make it, press this. It'll send a signal to the old Alliance comm. Maybe someone will come." Her eyes widened. "I won't leave you." He stared at her, then smiled bitterly. "You already saved me, Sierra. I'm not letting them take you back." Then, without another word, he turned to face the cave entrance. Weapon raised, the past had come back for him, but this time he wouldn't run. A dangerous escape plan. The cave was cold, damp, and silent. Jack crouched near the entrance, holding his old blaster rifle with both hands. His breathing was calm, but his eyes stayed fixed on the outside. Just beyond the rocks, the hunters were searching. Their shadows moved across the trees like wolves sniffing for blood. Behind Jack, deeper in the cave, Sierra sat on a flat stone. Her bandaged arm trembled slightly from exhaustion. Still, she kept her voice steady. They'll find us soon. Jack nodded. Unless we leave before they do. Sierra tilted her head. You have a plan? Jack didn't answer. He pulled a folded map from his jacket and spread it on the cave floor. Look, he pointed. This cave links to an old mining shaft. It runs underground, past the ridge, maybe even beyond their tracking range. You're sure it's still open? She asked. No, he said. But it's our only shot. Sierra stepped closer. Even if we escape, they will hunt again. They want my blood, Jack. They won't stop. Jack turned to face her, his eyes burning. Then we make them stop. Sierra stared at him. What happened to the man who lived alone and fixed broken machines? Jack chuckled, but there was no humor in it. He died the night I found you on my doorstep. Sierra stepped closer. And who are you now? Jack looked into her silver eyes. Someone worth fighting for. The silence between them was soft, almost peaceful despite the danger. Then Sierra did something unexpected. She reached forward and gently placed her forehead against his. A quiet, alien gesture of connection. Jack didn't move. He just closed his eyes. For a moment, two broken souls found stillness. Minutes later, the plan was in motion. Jack loaded a small EMP grenade and gave it to Sierra. When I signal, throw this behind us. It'll fry their drones for a few seconds, just enough time to run. Sierra nodded. What if they shoot? Then you keep running. Don't stop. And you? Jack smirked. I've been dodging bullets longer than you've been breathing. Sierra almost smiled. They moved into the tunnels, flashlight beams bouncing off wet rock. The deeper they went, the more the air changed. Less cold, more still. The shaft hadn't been touched in years. Strange fungus glowed faintly on the walls, casting blue light. Suddenly, Jack stopped, a sound. Metal shifting. He held up a hand. Sierra froze behind him. A hunter drone floated silently ahead, scanning the tunnel mouth. Jack pulled a small mirror from his belt and angled it around the corner. Two figures. Armed. Waiting. He cursed under his breath. They're already inside. Sierra whispered, We're trapped. Jack thought fast. Then he handed her the detonator. You're going to go back the way we came. No, Sierra grabbed his arm. I'm not leaving you. You are, Jack said firmly. You're the one they want. I'll lead them the other way, create a noise, draw them off. When you hear the explosion, run. Sierra's voice cracked. This is suicide. Jack placed a hand on her face. You saved my heart, Sierra. Let me save your life. Her silver eyes welled with tears, but she nodded. I will come back for you. Jack smiled. You better. As she ran into the side shaft, silent as breath, Jack moved toward the enemy. He pulled a pipe from the wall, struck it hard to create echo, and tossed it into the darkness. Over there, one of the hunters yelled. The two armed men moved fast, chasing the noise. Jack waited. 3 seconds. Then he hurled a smoke canister and slipped behind a support beam. He fired 2 quick shots, hitting one in the leg. The other shouted, Target. Located, Jack smiled. Come get me. Meanwhile, Sierra reached the cave mouth again. She saw dawn rising on the edge of the sky. But before she could breathe, she heard footsteps behind her. Not Jack. She turned. A tall hunter stepped from the trees, face masked, weapon raised. Sierra froze. Return quietly, subject, he said coldly. But Sierra didn't move. Her hand tightened around the EMP device. For what it's worth, she whispered. He taught me not to be afraid. And she threw it at his feet, a flash of light. The hunter screamed, systems fried. Sierra ran, through the trees, past the rocks, into the morning sun. She didn't stop, because now she had someone to return for. The betrayal. The old barn was falling apart, but it was hidden. Wooden walls, rusty tools, hay on the ground. Just another forgotten structure in the forest. But it had one thing Jack needed now. Cover. His side bled from a grazing shot. He pressed cloth against the wound and leaned back. Against a beam. He had escaped the tunnel. Barely, but he didn't care about pain. All that mattered now was Sierra. Was she safe? Then, a soft knock on the barn door. Jack raised his blaster. "Who is it?" A familiar voice answered. "Easy, Jack. It's me." Jack's eyes widened. "Cole?" The door creaked open. A man stepped inside. Rough beard, military coat, rifle, on his back. Cole Maddox, Jack's old war buddy, his commander during the Orion conflict, a man he once trusted with his life. "I heard rumors," Cole said. "Thought they were crazy. Alien girl hiding in the woods? Jack Carver, ex-soldier, helping her?" He gave a half smile. "But here you are." Jack stayed silent. Cole stepped closer. "You okay?" "You're bleeding." "I've had worse," Jack muttered. Cole knelt, pulled a med patch from his bag, and handed it over. As Jack pressed it to the wound, he finally asked, "Why are you here?" Cole looked around, then said carefully, "I work with Alliance Recovery now, special units. We got a ping about a crashed alien ship in this sector. I volunteered." Jack's heart sank. "So you're here for her?" Cole nodded. "You know how this works, Jack. She's classified. Dangerous." "She's not dangerous," Jack snapped. "She's hunted." Cole raised an eyebrow. "You sure about that? You think you know her after a few days?" Jack's voice was firm. "I know fear. I saw it in her eyes. And I've seen what the labs do to their specimens. She's not a weapon. She's a survivor." Cole sighed. "You always had a soft spot." Then his face hardened. "And that's why I knew you'd hide her." Jack stood up slowly. "What are you saying?" Cole took a step back. 4 shadows entered the barn behind him. Armed men. Guns raised. Jack's stomach dropped. "You sold me out." Cole didn't smile. "I warned command not to send drones, told them you'd shoot. I said, let me talk to him first, but the girl, she's coming with us." Jack's hand moved toward his weapon. "Don't," Cole warned. "You know I'll shoot." Jack's voice cracked. "You were my brother, Cole. You knew what they did to alien prisoners. You fought beside me. Elira trusted you." At the name of Jack's dead wife, Cole hesitated, but only for a second. "Times change," he said. "I didn't. You did." Suddenly a whistle rang out. Everyone turned. Sierra stood in the open barn door. Her hair glowed in the sunlight behind her. Her eyes locked on Jack's. "I told you I would return," she said softly. Jack's heart lifted. Cole's gun turned. "Don't move," he shouted. Sierra raised her hands and her skin pulsed with blue light. One of the men flinched. "What the hell?" Then the light expanded like a wave. Not fire, not electricity, but something deep and strange. The guns jammed. Radios cracked. Cole's men shouted, blinded. Jack ran to her side. "What did you do?" Sierra whispered. "My body remembers pain. Now it protects." They fled into the trees as chaos erupted behind them. That night, under cover of fog, Jack and Sierra hid inside an abandoned rail tunnel. The wind howled through rusted beams. Jack lit a small fire. Sierra stared into the flames. "You trusted him," she said quietly. Jack nodded. "He was my family once." "Now?" Jack didn't look up. "Now I trust you." Sierra's voice softened. "Why?" He smiled faintly. "Because you came back?" The heart healed. The mountain air was thin and cold. High above the clouds, where no drones could follow and no soldiers dared climb, Jack and Sierra found an abandoned observatory. Its giant telescope pointed at the stars. Long dead, but its stone walls stood strong. This would be their shelter, their home. For now. Sierra stood near the broken railing, her silver eyes staring at the sky. "Do you miss your world?" Jack asked, placing a blanket over her shoulders. She didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, "There is no world to miss. Mine was taken. My people scattered. My name was erased from records the moment I escaped." Jack's chest tightened. "I know what that feels like," he said quietly. Sierra looked at him. Jack continued. "When I left the army, people stopped calling. Friends disappeared. I was just the broken man in the woods. She turned to him, stepping closer. But you are not broken. Jack smiled. Not anymore. They spent days fixing the observatory. Jack repaired the water pipes and solar panels. Sierra restored the old signal dish, turning it into a sensor scrambler. Together, they made something the world had denied them. Safety. But it wasn't just tools and wires they rebuilt. It was trust. It was belonging. One evening while gathering wood, Jack paused at the edge of a ridge. He looked down at the dark forests far below, the place where he first found her, collapsed and afraid. He heard footsteps behind him. Sierra stood there, watching him. I never thanked you, she said. Jack turned. For what? For choosing me when you didn't have to. Jack laughed softly. You think I had a choice? She stepped closer. Every day. I thought I was just a test subject, a problem, something to be used, then discarded. Her voice trembled. But you looked at me like I mattered. Jack touched her face gently. Because you do. Then she leaned in, forehead against his. This time, he understood the gesture. She was giving him her heart, and he accepted it. Not as a soldier, not as a savior, but as a man who had once been shattered and was now whole again. That night, as they sat by the fire inside the observatory, Sierra looked up. Will they come again? Jack nodded. Maybe. Then we fight? Jack shook his head. No, we live, and if the world can't accept that, we build a new one. Sierra smiled, a real smile. Soft, radiant. I like that. In the final scene, the two of them watched the stars together. Silent, warm, unafraid. Two hearts once broken, now healed. Together.